Welcome to Tax Lien Code, where unlocking financial freedom is at the heart of every conversation. We're on a mission to empower our students to create their ideal financial future through real estate and tax lien investing. I'm your host, Brian Peterson, CEO of Tax Lien Code. Now let's accelerate your success. Hey, Tax Lien Code, it's Brian Peterson. I've got with me today Jerry Walker. I'm excited to introduce Jerry to you, which I'll do in just a minute, but we're going to be talking a lot about tax liens today. A couple of things specifically. Maybe this is the first ever podcast with Tax Lien Code. So we're going to be talking a little bit about just foundational information, what tax liens are, maybe the first step in the journey, what that looks like, how do you get started with tax lien investing, what the market means to tax lien investors right now. We're going through such an interesting time in real estate. So many cool things, so many scary things are happening in the market today. So we'll talk about that and how that impacts tax liens. And one of the reasons that, Jerry, I specifically wanted to invite you on today is because I want to talk a lot about what beginning tax lien investors are doing right now that they're finding success in. And so as we started brainstorming ideas, it's such a valuable thing, at a valuable talking point right now in the investing space. So many people looking for new avenues to make money and to be successful. And so many investors have tried anything and everything. Tried all of these investment types over the last couple of years and finding that a lot of these fads are going away and they weren't successful with it. And so a lot of people coming back to real estate at a time where the real estate industry is changing and some of the things that have worked for decades don't work so great anymore. You're on the front lines on a lot of things for new investors. And so I wanted to invite you on and spend a little bit of time with you this morning to talk about your experience and what you're doing. But before that, maybe just a quick intro for you, Jerry, and to the Tax Lien Code world. This is Jerry Walker. I first met Jerry about a year and a half ago. He was attending one of our trainings and my son was playing baseball in Houston, Texas. So I went down to Houston to see my son play baseball and I just stopped into an event that was going on in Houston. And you were a participant in that class a year and a half ago. And you and I had a very specific conversation that I still remember and that I know you remember. And so it's been a whole circle, a culmination of an incredible year and a half for me and a year and a half for you. But you've done incredible investing over the last year and a half that I want to touch on. But Jerry, tell Tax Lien Code a little bit about you before Tax Lien Code. So what was Jerry Walker doing before you found us or before we found you?
I've done a lot of things, right? But everything was great. I was a ER trauma nurse before starting with Tax Lien Code. I worked at the #1 trauma hospital in Texas. And prior to that, I started that journey of mine in 2006. And prior to that, I played in the NFL. I played with the New England Patriots.
Ooh.
And then played for the Kansas City Chiefs. I also played college football there in Kansas at Manhattan, Kansas, at Kansas State.
Man, you just tongue on all my heartstrings right now. The backers, as we're located here in Kansas City, and so you're just tugging on a lot of those. So I want to come back to maybe the NFL later, because I'm sure that there are some intriguing storylines and stories and things that you learned at your playing career or through your playing career that helped you investing. But let's go back to being a trauma nurse. It's quite the pivot for you to go from the NFL, playing in the league, getting beat up every day, to flipping and being a trauma nurse. And I'm sure, tell me what that looks like. Like what does it feel like to be a trauma nurse?
I tell you what, it's one of the most exhilarating things that you can do profession-wise.
Yeah.
Because for me, from the background that I came from, I was always literally on 10 all the time.
Yeah.
And when in the emergency room and the hours that I worked from 7 p to 7 a, you never stopped. You were always running.
Yeah.
And so I needed that adrenaline because I could akin that to the NFL, to my playing days.
Yeah, man. So how many years so you said trauma nurse in 06, is that right?
Yes, sir.
So you've been a trauma nurse, my 17 years, is that right?
Wow, you didn't have to put it out like that. Now, that is correct.
That's right.
Correct. Now, I started my journey as a CNA, as a certified nurse assistant in Texas, in
Yeah.
Houston, and when I I said before, it was the first day that I knew that I wanted to be a nurse. That was where I wanted to be when I first started my training in the ER. I was like, that's where I want to be.
That's incredible. So 17 years, you've had an incredible career. I'm sure you could do your own podcast on just ER stories because there's got to be a lot of cool stuff there. But and after a 17-year career, you had 2 full careers, a full career in the NFL, a full career now as a trauma nurse. Why did you decide, or what was the inkling or the foundation for you to want to do something different? Or did you want it? Maybe that's presumptuous on my part. What put you into tax lien investing?
It's the old I followed a girl story.
What was her name?
Her name is Roxana Morales.
And so
Roxana,
she was the one I met, right?
yes, sir. She is.
Okay.
She is.
Yeah.
She's still a partner with Tax Lien Code.
Okay.
When Roxana and I met, she's an accountant, right? She does tax accounting for companies as well as individuals, and she had a company in Atlanta, and she has a company in Houston. And I would see her go like I used to go when I played sports. She'd wake up 6 a.m. and her speed started at 100 miles an hour, and she didn't finish her day. And I guess I should say, when she finished her day, it was 100 miles an hour. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And one day I asked her, I was like, how do you start your own business? How do you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
And that led into a 2-hour diatribe, and which ended up being the antithesis for me to lead me to Tax Lien Code.
So you just wanted to start a business. You're just like, I want to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, it wasn't an investing. It wasn't, I want to do real estate. You just wanted to be an entrepreneur.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. And it was maybe 2 weeks after this conversation that she went to another real estate investing space, but it was for women only. And so I was like, wow, I can't go because it's women only. So literally, I don't know, maybe 12 hours later, like in my mind, I think Facebook was like in my brain going, and here comes Tax Lien Code pops up, and I see your face there. And I'm looking, and I look, I then Google, and I'm like, I heard the word free for a day's training to see kind of information to see what you guys were out. And I signed this up.
Yeah. And you came, and then that was, oh man, that must have been beginning of summer, late spring last year.
Late spring.
Right?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So prior to that, no entrepreneur background, no real estate investing background as well. Is that
no investing, no real estate investing, no real estate. I was a working dude. I was a working. Yeah.
Okay.
I worked. I'm waiting for my paycheck to come in.
Yeah.
And that's how I was living. And I was like, I cannot do this because my dreams literally were dying inside me.
Yeah. Your dream. Hold on. I'm going to write that down. Your dreams were dying inside of you. That's an awful statement.
It is.
Now, what dreams? And I think that this probably speaks to a lot of people, because the majority of Americans have some type of 9 to 5. You were in a 9 to 5. You were a 7P to 7A, right? That's a 12.
Yes.
That's a 12 hour. That's not even a 9 to 5. But I think that probably resonates with a lot of people. Like that phrase, my dreams were dying inside of you. What do you mean by that? What dreams did you have that you felt were dying?
I've always felt when whoever meets me always know exactly who I am. Yeah. I'm the kind of person who sees and envisions paths for that not only involves me, but it always involves others.
Yeah.
And so what I was doing and helping people and saving lives, that was special to me. But there was something else missing. And yeah, I didn't have that monetary flow and time freedom that was hindering me from becoming the best dad I could be, the best person that I could be, the best friend even.
Yeah.
And I was just missing all of that. And it was literally, at that time, I was 55 years old.
Okay.
When you see your life and you're at 55, you're like, half of my life is over. Where am I going to start now to do the things that I want to do?
Yeah.
So it wasn't that Roxana Morales came into my life, that whole world opened up again.
Yeah. Will you do me a favor? Will you send me a picture of you and Roxana? I'd love to have that hanging on my wall. I'd love to have that hanging in the office at Tax Lien Code, a picture of the two of you, because it's just so representative of your story and your progression. But will you do that for me? I'd love to.
Yes, I will.
Hung up all the way. So you're sitting at a spot, maybe 18, 20 months past where a lot of our listeners are today. And I've been investing in real estate for, I'll say, a long time. Some are going to scoff at that, but probably since about 2005. And so sometimes like I get buried down in the weeds, right? I get too focused on specific things. But as a new investor, we have probably a lot of listeners that are brand new to the investing space, brand new to real estate, brand new to tax liens. So coming from Jerry Walker, tell us real quick overview to the listeners, how would you describe a tax lien to a brand new investor who knows nothing about real estate, nothing about tax liens? Give me a quick summary to our listeners of what a tax lien is.
I will tell you, the day that I sat in class and was literally in the foundation process, that when RG explained tax lien investing to us as a class, I kind of symmetrically evolved my thoughts around, I have 4 downs to make a first down, and tax liens gave me the ball. Okay, I can run my plays with the tax liens. And so when it didn't matter if it was a $50 lien or if it was a $10,000 lien, because I then wanted this to be my savings, because my grandmother, who is 104 years old, came up through the Depression, and she always told me, son, always save your money.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
Now, being a young man, I didn't, but it always stuck with me. I wanted to treat tax liens in itself as a savings because it's guaranteed, excuse me, by the county government.
Okay. So we'll come back to that, right? We'll come back to that because my attorneys always get mad with that word guaranteed. Because
insulated.
Kind of. There we go. Insulated.
I like it.
Yeah. Okay. Refreshing on a tax lien. So a tax lien, so every property across the United States has to pay property taxes. And that property tax rate is going to be determined by the state and the county. Generally, it's between 1% and 2% of the assessed value of any property. In Texas, where Jerry's at, your property tax rate is a little bit higher than most places in the country because you don't have income tax, right? You don't have state income tax. So the state makes up for it by charging a higher tax rate on your properties. But generally, the county is going to assess your property at a certain value, and you're going to pay 1% to 2% of that in property tax. Now, tax liens come into play when the property owner doesn't pay their tax. For whatever reason, they choose to not send the county the money that's owed to them for property taxes. So in order for the county to ensure that they get that money, the county will place a lien on the property and to verify or hold that position. Jerry, that's how we explained it to you. And then in order to get that money, because the county doesn't care about the lien, they're just trying to ensure that they get the money. So they place a lien on the property, but all they really want is the money that pays for all the services, right? They want to be able to pay the school teachers. They want to be able to pay public services like fire departments, police departments. They want to pay for the roads. In most counties, in most states, the largest employer in any municipality are government workers. So if most of that money comes from property taxes. So if people don't pay property taxes, the county can't function. So in order to get that money instantly rather than delaying that process, they sell a certificate for that tax lien to an investor. So if the property owner owed $2,000, they would put a $2,000 lien on the property and then sell that certificate to the general populace. And their whole intention is just to get that $2,000. That's all they care about. They just want that $2,000 so that their budget works. Now, in order to make it exciting for investors like you and me, Jerry, what does the county offer?
The county offers what they call, they use the word either penalty or percentage.
Right.
And as tax lien, especially new tax lien investors, let's just use Florida for an instance, for an example. Florida is 18% annually. It's not compounded, but just take your savings account and what's the going rate these days? 1%, and you may get a money market at 1.5%. What I did when I came to tax lien code was put the percent what I was getting for my savings to the tax liens. And that's how I envisioned it. Mm-hmm. And so that it became almost like I want the lollipop, right? Yeah. I want to make so I can get the candy.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's come back to your terminology of guaranteed. And I love that word because it sure feels that way. My attorneys get really mad when I say guaranteed. And here's why you use guaranteed. And here's how I like to use guaranteed. Now, in the investment world, very little is guaranteed. Generally, it's open to market conditions. Things are outside of our control, right? Market's going to go up, market's going to go down. The reason that we often say that a tax lien is guaranteed is because the return or the penalty or the interest that's being charged is charged by the county. You don't set it. I don't set it. I don't get a vote in what penalty or rate the county charges. It's all in state statutes from the state. And so Florida, which is one of my very favorite places to invest in as well, Florida's state mandated rate or penalty or interest rate is 18% annualized. So that's pretty incredible, right? So here's the cool thing with tax lien certificates as well, investing in them. So first of all, we get a state mandated rate of return, but also our investment is backed or secured as a first lien position on that real estate.
Yes.
Which is absolutely incredible.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I go invest in stocks or something like that, it's not backed a lot. It's backed by a piece of paper by that company. But in tax liens, it's backed by the real estate.
Correct. It is backed by the real estate, that parcel of land, that piece of land that has a dwelling, a house where what you and I understand where our families were raised, that's exactly where that certificate comes from.
Okay, so as a brand new investor, right? Yeah, I love what your grandma's 104 years old.
Yes, she is.
How good for her. You're gonna have to tell me some secrets there because I hope to live to be 104. When you said you were halfway there at 54, I was like, you're being a little bit liberal there, right? But if your grandma was 104, I guess you're right. She said, always save your money. You made an interesting comment. You said, I'm going to just take the $1,500 and invest in tax. So tell me what your first year looked like investing in tax liens.
So what I did, I did it just like a savings account. I specified a certain amount of money that I wanted to put in my savings account, and I took it and used it for lien. It was $1,500.
Okay.
I did a 12-month trial for me.
Okay.
And so what I did is I took $1,500 times 12 months, and that equals $18,000.
Okay. Now, but
at the end,
real quick, just for clarification. The first month you only put you didn't put $18,000 in from month one. You put $1,500
No,
in month one, an additional $1,500 month two, $1,500 month three. So you were building up to $18,000. Is that right?
that is
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
So
Go ahead.
when it came in, because what I also do, Brian, is I get tax liens that are eligible to be pushed to TDA. In other words, that I can push the lien and make a tax deed application for it.
Okay. So what that means to anybody that's brand new to tax liens or real estate in general is every state's going to be a little bit different. And this is one of the tricky things with tax lien investing. And frankly, it's why we exist as a organization. Historically, for centuries, tax lien investing is not new. They've been around for 300 years. Most investors, like myself, I've been investing for 15 years probably before, maybe not that long, 12 years before I ever bought my very first tax lien. Because the majority of people that buy tax liens, or the majority of institutions, are hedge funds, REITs, major organizations, institutional money, insurance companies, people like me, people like you just weren't buying them just because nobody ever talked about them. And anyways, one of the things that I had to learn is that every state is different. Texas is different than Kansas, different than Missouri, different than Florida. And so one of the challenges that most investors come in is there's over 3,000 counties in the United States. And every county operates a little bit different, and every state operates different. So you have to come in and learn policy and procedure and state statutes for at least 50 different states and then 3,000 different counties. And so one of the reasons that we exist, and I hope you found these useful, Jerry, is we provide lots of tools, resources, education to simplify that process. One of the things you mentioned in Florida is that you filed something we call a TDA, or the Florida calls a TDA, which stands for tax deed application. And in Florida, 2 years after the lien was issued, the lien holder, which is, in this case, you're referring to you, Jerry, has the ability, not the requirement, but you have the right or the ability to start the foreclosure process, right? As a lien holder, we have that right that you can initiate a foreclosure process. If the property owner doesn't pay, then what happens?
What happens is the county gives the owner of the property a time to pay what's owed to the county.
Yeah.
And so at that time, if the owner chooses not to, then the county will then send it to auction.
Right. And then it goes, and if nobody buys it at auction, what happens?
Then it becomes my parcel. It becomes mine.
Yeah, you own it, right? So
yeah.
Now, maybe for new investors out there, that rarely happens. Almost never. The majority of time, like 90 some odd percentile of time, the property owner is going to pay back and you get a rate of return. But that's such an incredible worst case scenario, isn't it? That the worst case scenario, if the property owner doesn't end up paying, you get the property. So when you say it's guaranteed, the interest rate is mandated by the state. And if you don't get it, right? Usually we look at it as we have two options, right? You either get the rate of return or you get a property, right? Those are two pretty good outcomes. And all right, we're getting sidetracked. I apologize. So you invested $1,500 a month in Florida.
Yes.
But you were buying, I guess where the digression happened is you were buying older liens from the county. So you were buying liens. So in Florida, it has to season for 2 years. Call that the redemption period. And after 2 years, the lien holder has the right to foreclose. So you were specifically targeting liens that were older.
That is correct.
Okay. Sorry, pick up from there. Correct. I went down this long rabbit hole, but pick up from there.
Yeah, from there. So when everything came back from that 12-month thing that I did, that my little test, if you will, I had my $18,000 principal back.
Okay.
Plus an additional $5,245. Now,
wait, hold on for a second. Let me wrap my head around this. So you invested $1,500 a month, total of $18,000. at the end of the 12 months, all of them had redeemed. Like you had all of your capital back. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Plus
I did.
an extra $5,245 of what we would call profit.
Correct.
Okay, so my math skills, Jerry, are not that great, but let me just math real quick. Oh my goodness. Now my attorneys are gonna lose their mind. So I'm gonna put a huge caveat here, and then I'm gonna ask you some questions about this because Jerry, you made a 29% return on that $18,000.
Correct.
But that 29% is not even right because you didn't invest the whole $18,000 from month one. So if we were actually to annualize the return that you got, I don't have the ability to do that math, but you had an incredible rate of return. So we'll probably have to put one of those like little disclaimers as like results not typical. Everybody's not as awesome as Jerry Walker's the top. All of those disclaimers here probably on the bottom of my screen right now, because that 29%, but here's the cool part. The 29% is probably not typical. Like I want to dive into that a little bit, but a great rate of return is typical in my opinion, but you got a phenomenal rate of return, 29%. My goodness, how did, so many questions, Jerry. How did that change? That was your trial, right? That's amazing. Your very first year of brand new to real estate investing, brand new to tax lien investing, brand new as an entrepreneur. You made a 29% rate of return. Quick, easy math, it's higher than that, but a 29% rate of return. How do you feel like your first year went?
My first year was phenomenal.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, if I can just keep doing and pushing enough for me not only to stay interested, but remember, I had a significant other on the other side of me, and I have 3 kids that I not only wanted this to work out, I needed it to work out. Because what was it, maybe 6 months, about 8 months after I had gone through everything with the classes, and I decided to give my career, my nursing career, a hiatus, if you will, a retirement. And it was just because my vision had crystallized and it had gotten bigger. Yeah. So I wanted to do bigger things in the amount of time that I had my working career. So
to go back in time, if you could rewind 18 months to the very first time you and I sat down, or you and I met, what would you tell somebody in that same spot after having this success in your very first year? And now some people are going to look at it, Jerry, and be like, yeah, but he only made $5,000, right? Like he only made $5,000, right? It's not a ton of money. The grand scheme of things, $5,000 is a lot to some people. It's a lot to me. $5,000, write me a check, $5,000, and I'm happy, right? My kids are happy. My wife's happy. But if you could go back to yourself or to brand new investors that were starting just like you, never invested in real estate, never invested in tax liens, based on what you accomplished in your first year, what piece of advice would you give to somebody?
I personally, and I say it all the time, I ask people, don't give up, because this is and I also said that consistent actions, because I did this when I did my $1,500, it was consistent every month without fail. And it was like consistent actions equal consistent gains. And
hold on. We could just consistent action equals consistent gains.
Yes.
Man, where did you get that? That's amazing. I love that. I'm going to steal that from you, Jerry. I'm going to steal that from you. That's great. Consistent action equals consistent gains.
And it was just because I come from a dogged background, whether it's from sports. I know a lot of people don't play sports, and even if they didn't play it to the level that I played, but sports in general mimics life so much that, and I always say that life is a teacher, and sports accelerated that for me.
Yeah.
And it made me be the dogged, I don't know, person that I am, because when I'm like a dog. I was a dog with a bone at that time.
Yeah.
And that bone had a lot of meat on it, and I didn't let it go. And I still haven't let it go today, because even if I took that same money and put it in a savings account, it was not going to get the return that I got from tax liens.
Yeah.
Now, it's not to say that, okay, it's good. That is government backed as well by the FDIC, but you still don't see the consistent gains.
Right.
And again, my grandmother, 104 years old, and she'd look at me and, oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I bet grandma's happy with your incredible gains there.
It's for sure. And I think it's with anything. I don't care if you're a waiter, or you work for the city, or you work for a Fortune 500 company. If you don't bring your consistent A game to the job that you're doing at that time, then yeah, you're going to be looked at not as a positive, but as a negative to any company. I don't care what you do. And my mom always told me, I don't care if you're a trash man, or if you work at the bank or you're president of the bank. It does not matter. You need to go to work with a great attitude, and that attitude of gratitude, as I like to say, because there are times, Brian, that everything doesn't work out all the time. It doesn't.
Right. And
so if you don't have your reason, why you're doing this, you will wake up at 3 a.m, and when whatever you're doing, your investments, just like I've done.
Yeah.
And if go back and find my why I'm doing this, then I would have just stopped and started doing something else that was going to make me more money than what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I could have did that, but that's not what I want to do. I'm thinking long-term now. This is long-term. This is a long-term game for me. This is what Tax Lien Code has done for me.
Because you created a system inside of your investing, right? That's incredible. So hats off to you. I wanted to follow up on maybe tie in your background in the NFL. So let's consider this maybe halftime, Jerry. You're at halftime, okay, and you've had some incredible coaches, probably high school, college, NFL, all the way through your playing career. And you've probably made some mistakes along the way, right? There's always bumps, there's always bruises, there's always something going on. And so,
yes, sir,
what halftime speech would you give yourself, right? Like you're Bill Parcells sitting in the locker room at halftime, and you're halfway through the journey, right? So maybe talk like, how would you view those plays you didn't do well? You didn't execute, you didn't do well. Give me your halftime speech. What would you tell a brand new investor who's been in Tax Lien Code for 6 months, who's had similar journey as you, right? They've had some successes. They probably had some failures in there. Give me your halftime speech.
It's like this. You know what? Welcome to your journey. Because I love to clarify, and this is your journey. And even I remember my coach telling us as a group of football players, guys, this is your journey, but you have chosen to be on your journey with me. And I said, I need for you to come along with me and be present in your situation. Now we were down by 21 points. And he tells us, you have the victory inside of you. You just have to stay focused and keep going. He goes, we're going to come out of here in this third quarter. Yeah. And they're going to keep coming and they're going to keep coming. Just like the failures, they're going to come. But remember the gains. My best thing as a cornerback is my ability to forget, because I can't tell you how many times I've let someone run past me to catch a touchdown.
Yeah.
But I would always suit up and I have my helmet on for the next series that come and ready to play. And so that's what we as investors have to be like. And so I'm telling myself at halftime, let's continue the journey.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, and then you quit before the miracle, then you're going to always be what if.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to let that happen to me. And anyone who I come in contact with, who I have the privilege and honor to come into contact with as they're learning their investment journey, I won't let them quit.
Yeah.
Because I've made a promise to myself not to leave anyone behind. I don't care what their dreams is, because that's not me, that's them. You tell me what you want and I'll help you get there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it feels like in our society, Jerry, we have this condition where we believe that failure at anything means that we're insufficient or that we're a bad person or that it's a personal defect. So we're scared of failing. As a cornerback, wide receiver runs right by you, scores a touchdown, and all of a sudden you're a bad person. So we're afraid. We built this culture, we've built this belief that if I fail, I have failed. Like I'm a failure. And they're so different because everybody that's ever had success has failed along the journey. And so for me, I failed. I've lost money. I've done things in real estate that you look back and I was like, man, I lost a lot of money and I failed. Like there's no way to look at it differently. Like I failed. That did not work. And we getting past that is so hard. It's so hard to realize that I sucked in the first half. But how much football do you watch where team is awful at first half and they make some adjustments and they come out and second half goes completely different? Whether they win or lose, I don't think is the important part, but making that adjustment at halftime and coming out and playing better is really the important part in life and investing and in life. But let's continue with this football strategy because I love it. Halftime, everybody makes adjustments, right? Like we're making adjustments, but the opposing side is making adjustments as well. And right now, the things that we're seeing in the real estate world is that the real estate world is adjusting. It's changing. It's for good or bad. I don't want to get in that conversation because I'm certainly don't have the PhDs to back my own belief systems in what's causing and what's happening or what's going to happen in the real estate market. But I think most people would agree that it's softening, that there's some softening, whether that ends up in a full-blown recession or full-blown whatever, right? The real estate market is changing, right? The opposition, the team we're playing against, they're doing some things that it's going to affect how we invest in real estate. How do you see tax liens in the upcoming world in real estate investing? So assuming that we are going to enter in some level of recession, maybe not, hopefully not a depression like your grandma went through. The last 10 years of real estate have been historically crazy. To look back at that sequence of time and what's happened in Texas, what's happened in Kansas and Missouri and all across the United States of America, it's been crazy. So if we do see a softening, how do you see tax liens playing into that world?
You know what? I do see tax liens as, we're always going to have taxes. We're always going to have counties.
Yeah.
We're always going to have police. We're always going to have firemen. The hospital I worked for was a county hospital. So the scenario that you were talking about involved me in that scenario because the county that I worked for, which was a Harris County hospital, came from taxpayer revenue as well. Yeah. So people are always going to be here. We're always going to have, counties, towns. And so there's always going to be a need for taxes. Now, regardless of how they get paid, the scenario that we were talking about, if for whatever reason, and those reasons I don't know, it happens. If it happens, and and time has told us that it's going to happen, so that's just an opportunity for us investors to purchase what they call tax liens. And I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
No.
As a matter of fact, just like we're talking about the market doing what it's going to do, even in the worst scenario, that the tax lien game is always going to be there. And I believe it's going to be better.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to get any worse.
Sure.
But I think it could get better than what it is right now.
Now, when you say better, it's already pretty great. It sounds like you're being a little greedy to me, Jerry. You're making an incredible rate of return on a pretty consistent investment. And I'm the same way. I want to be greedy too. When you say better, what do you mean? How is it going to get better? I guess I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. I'm just curious why you think it's going to be better.
I think because there's going to be a lot more stress on us, on people, and I put myself in there as well. And so, for whatever reason, taxes may not get paid in the time frame that they need to be paid.
Right.
And for counties to keep functioning, whether it's the court system, whether it's the police, because they have to pay. They have to pay who work in those positions and the ancillary positions as well. So I believe that it's just, there's going to be better tax liens, more tax liens on businesses, commercial, even single family homes, and that stress or distress, if you will, it's going to come. Now, that doesn't mean that you and I are piggybacking on someone's misfortune.
Yeah.
It's in any investing arena, you're always going to get the best, whether it's stock, whether it's a lien, it doesn't matter. You're always going to purchase the best stock or lien that's going to give you the best return. And that's what I've chosen to do. I don't do the stocks, I do liens, because that, what I've done, it has been the best resource for me.
Yeah. When you saw a Facebook ad for us, we run a lot of stuff on social media, and it's fascinating to me how much negativity surrounds what we do. And I think a lot of it just comes from maybe some perception. So maybe you touched on it and you said it's going to get better, it's going to go worse. So one of the things that we get hit with all the time in our comments, as I read through the comments on all of our posts or all of our ads, whatever, is that we're the bottom of the barrel. We're the scoundrels. We're taking advantage of people that are knocked out, knocked down, that can't pay their taxes. And we're like the bad guy. We're like the ultimate villain in a Disney movie. We are taking advantage of people. And when I first read that, I was like offended by it. I was like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not charging taxes. I don't like taxes more than anybody else. I hate writing a check to the county, and I hate writing a check to the IRS in the state of Kansas. I don't like that anymore. But if we didn't exist, and this is the part that I have a hard time typing back on a Facebook comment, is that if we didn't exist, if the county is going to charge taxes whether or not investors are buying tax liens, and the county is going to place a lien on that person's house whether or not we buy tax liens or not, the problem that the county has is they don't care about the lien. The lien doesn't do them any good. If Jerry Walker doesn't pay his taxes, or Brian Peterson doesn't pay their taxes, and then they just put a lien on my property, that doesn't get Jerry Walker paid as a trauma nurse in the ER. So they don't care about it. So and some states operate this way. But if they weren't issuing liens, then they would just foreclose on the property and take possession of the property and then sell the property out and get their taxes that way. So if tax lien investing didn't exist, property owners that don't pay their taxes would lose their property very quickly, and the county would be kicking people out of their houses left and right. So the way that I look at it, maybe what you were talking about, is that we give property owners a second chance. And I don't want anybody to have this view that I'm trying to position myself as completely altruistic and I'm doing this as like a charity, because I'm not. Like, I'm definitely doing this to make money. But the reality is, if we didn't exist, if the county couldn't place a tax lien and sell that tax lien to you and to me, the alternative is that they would just lose their house. And so we are giving that property owner time to figure out their financial situation. So we're coming in and just saying, hey, I'm going to pay on your behalf and allow you time to pay me back. And because the county, the big bad wolf out there of the county, they don't care. They need their money to pay for all of the services. You made an interesting comment, though, is that if we do go into a recession, then that is just going to put an extra burden on more property owners and possibly put them in a position where the amount of unpaid property taxes might go up. And it probably will. Historically, if we were to track recessions and availability of tax liens, those tax liens definitely follow that curve. So if more people are unemployed and in bad financial situations, the chance of not paying their property tax definitely goes up. So that provides more opportunity for you, provides more opportunity for me, and without us, creates a bad position for that property owner. So if there aren't more people that are jumping into this business, into this game, if there's not more tax lien investors or real estate investors who start buying tax liens, that's going to put the county at a bad spot, and it potentially could put property owners at a bad spot if nobody's buying these tax liens.
That is correct. And you hit on something, especially with the negativity. I so remember, like it was yesterday, when Roxanne and I wrote the check. Not I say write the check, but pulled out a plastic card. But because I was giddy and excited about starting my new journey.
Yeah.
So I was telling everybody, my family, my cousins, and I got this. Oh, are you gonna quit nursing? What do you? And it all came back to me probably about 2 weeks later, Brian, that it was like they almost had me convinced that I made a mistake. But I had to look myself in the mirror and go, okay, let me turn off all this negativity. I left. I didn't go around my family for literally 4 months. Didn't tell them anything that I was doing.
Yeah.
What I was wanting to do, because they already knew, but I wasn't like in their face all the time because I didn't want to hear their comments.
Yeah. And
it wasn't until later on in my career, and I say my real estate investing career, that it was like they started coming to me, hey, what are you doing? So how are you able to do? And it was like, let me tell you. Brian, the one thing that Tax Lien Code has enabled me to do is I couldn't surround myself with all the people that I like to call haterade, because I started wanting to be around people who had the things that I wanted and had the mindset that they were going, not just wanting it, but that was putting action behind their words and going to get what they wanted. And I listen to Warren Buffett all the time because, he's literally a person that has what I want. But it's not that I want to go out and take it from him. I want to learn from him.
Yeah.
I want to learn RG. I want to learn from the Randys of the world. I want to learn from the Brian Petersons of the world, because if those people are in my network, then I can ideas and how did you get to the point that you got? And that consistency, like I said, that word comes up in all every one of the people that I just mentioned,
Yeah.
that word comes up every conversation with them.
Yeah.
And for as wealthy as some of the people that I'm around, but their attitude hasn't changed.
Yeah.
They're good people.
Mm-hmm.
People.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm good people.
Yeah. One of my core beliefs, and you hit on it, is that my network determines my net worth. And so too many times we're surrounded by that negativity, and we listen to advice or we get advice from people that frankly just haven't earned the right to give advice. And we listen to that advice for reasons that I don't know, but I've been guilty of it myself. But just that, I'm glad you're part of the network. I'm glad you're around. I'm glad you're part of TaxLink Code's family, because I definitely benefit from having Jerry Walker around. So thank you for that. Our time's probably coming a little short, but I wanted to hit on something that was maybe from the beginning of our conversation, as it stuck out for me, because I think that it stopped me at the beginning too, is typically in real estate, one of the drawbacks when I first got started, I was in college when I first started investing and going down my career. I was broke. I had no money, none. And in order to get started in real estate, so many times we believe that we have to have these big sums of money. And you started out, and I think that's true with a lot of just entrepreneurs anyways. You have to have these big chunks of money to get started. But in reality, you started with $1,500 a month. Treat it like a savings account. But as you said that, and I keep in the back of my head, I'm stuck on this idea, Jerry, that I don't know of another type of investing inside of real estate that you can start for $1,500. Like, I can't go buy a rental. I can't buy a rental for $1,500. I can't flip a house for $1,500. And I know that there's, and he was a big mentor of mine at the beginning. There's a gentleman named Robert Allen, wrote a book in the late 70s, early 80s, and they're called Nothing Down. He's become a good friend of mine over the years. And so I know that there's strategies for that. And I've used a lot of strategies myself. But what I'm talking about is somebody that has a little bit of extra money, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is, that generally and historically in the normal grip of real estate investing, there's no place for you. If somebody comes in to a realtor and says, hey, I got $3,000, I want to invest in real estate, there's no spot for that in the normal real estate techniques. And you opened up, hopefully for a lot of new listeners, a lot of new people with TaxLink Code, or real estate investors in general, to realize that you don't have to have $100,000. Obviously, you could scale what you were doing to $100,000. We do it all day long, all year long in our business, but you don't have to start there, whether it's a comfort level, whether it's a cash availability. But you started consistently at a dollar amount that most people would say, I can't start investing because my budget's $1,500 a month, or my availability is $1,500 a month, or total. You started there.
I did. And and I always say again, and I will give you this, is I don't care if it's $100 a month, then you go with that $100 a month in tax liens.
Yeah. Because
I guarantee you, whatever you do with that $100, whether it's you put it in a savings account, you're still not going to get the return that you would get in tax liens. I don't care if at the end of the year you say, whoa, I got $50.67 from my money that I put in the bank. Well, just for instance, it's $120.67. You're still going to do what you're going to do with that money.
Yeah.
Why not make maybe that 50% more for you?
Yeah. Jerry, I appreciate you sharing such incredible wisdom and insights and experience. I found it valuable in the last, hour or so, 45, whatever it's been that we've been chatting. Like I've gotten I've gotten tingly, I've gotten excited. I've written a ton of notes down on things that I took from your insights and your information. I'm glad I'm glad we met a year and a half ago. I'm glad that a year and a half ago you pulled me aside in that break and said, I'm going to be around. I want to come. I want to be part of the Tax Code family. Our family is definitely better because you're in it. So thank you, for being successful, for so many cool stories that I hope we get a chance to do this again, Jerry. I hope you're willing to come on again and maybe talk additional specifics of what you're doing. It's been a blast for me.
For me as well. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity, because this is an opportunity and I appreciate that.
Yeah. For all of you listening here with Tax Code, make sure you follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, YouTube, whatever channels. Follow us along. We'll be in your area soon, I'm sure. If you want to come to a free masterclass, just Jerry did a year and a half ago, you're welcome to join us. Thank you, Jerry. Thanks for spending the time with me today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Brian. Have a great one.
My pleasure.